dias from Laos Point. This is the Rorschach Argentina update from the 28th of May, 2026. A quick summary of what's going down in Argentina. The INDEC Statistics Institute announced that economic activity hit the historic high in March and bouncing back with a 3.5% jump from February and a 5.5% surge year over year. This marks the biggest monthly increase since President Milei took office. Progressive think tanks celebrate this as a structural shift, while center-left analysts urge caution, arguing that March of last year was a freezing, weak baseline because businesses were waiting for exchange rate overhauls. In other news from the halls of Congress, the ruling La Libertad Avanza party scored a major legislative victory by advancing a bill in the lower house to strip natural gas benefits from some 3 million households. This measure rolls back the cold areas subsidy regime introduced in 2021 to cut public spending as winter begins, targeting discounts strictly to vulnerable families based on income. Even those who keep the benefits will see higher bills because the new law removes discounts from distribution fees and channels user surcharges directly into state coffers. Since we mentioned the government cutting back on assistance to balance its books, the International Monetary Fund, or IMF, officially approved the second review of its current agreement, unlocking an immediate $1 billion disbursement. This injection means the country has secured 80% of the $20 billion package. The IMF praised the economic stabilization, but warned that if you factor its capitalized interest, the celebrated fiscal surplus actually turns into a total deficit of around 0.8% of gross domestic product. Speaking of financial distortions, local capital markets are experiencing an absolute anomaly because strict currency controls leave captive dollars trapped inside the country. Because banks are flush with greenbacks but legally barred from lending them to anyone without a hard foreign income, local borrowing costs have plummeted. This bizarre scenario has allowed local companies and the state to sell dollar-denominated bonds onshore at interest rates well below what the United States government pays, with lender Banco Supervielle locking in a one-year note at just 3%. As corporations exploit these cheap local rates, foreign direct investment has hit rock bottom, with a new report showing Argentina finished last year as the absolute worst performing among the region's major economies. The country pulled in a net total of just over $3 billion, while Brazil led with nearly $77 billion, and Costa Rica secured over $5 billion. This poor performance occurred despite the rollout of the RIGI Big Investment Incentive Scheme, as international players backed away due to collapsing domestic consumption, the total freeze on public works, and deep exchange rate uncertainty. The collapse in consumption is hammering local businesses as mass retail sales fell by more than 3% year on year in April. Even though inflation is slowing down, the general public simply cannot afford to shop. Physical stores across all traditional sectors are taking a massive beating, with non-essential and high-cost items leading the downfall, including a 12% drop in impulse buys. As families struggle, a study by the University of Buenos Aires and CONICET, the National Scientific and Technical Research Council, has exposed a severe childhood malnutrition crisis across the country. Researchers analyzed data from nearly 1 million children under 5 in the public health system, revealing deep geographic inequalities. The national growth stunting average hit over 11%, while some underprivileged departments in the north face rates higher than 50%, coexisting with a 14% childhood obesity rate due to cheap, low-nutrient diets. To make matters worse, the executive branch just sent a project to the Senate to completely wipe out the frontal labeling law. This controversial move seeks to eliminate the black octagonal warning stamps that food companies must place on products with excessive fats, sugar, or calories. The administration justifies the repeal by arguing that the current system causes consumer confusion and relies on oversimplified profiles, sparking absolute perplexity in Congress as ruling party senators scrambled to build alliances to pass the single-point bill. Now here's an update on the ongoing investigation into Manuel Adorni's finances that we covered last week. The ruling party managed to secure a quorum in the lower house to completely block an opposition attempt to summon the cabinet chief for questioning regarding his wealth. While lawmakers shielded the president's top ally from facing Congress, Adorni faced intense public scrutiny after the government launched its controversial Social Digital Twin initiative. President Milei announced the creation of this AI system designed to scrape personal data from government and private databases to simulate social policies. The launch quickly turned into an absolute embarrassment on social media when tech experts noticed the promotional video was full of basic spelling mistakes and grammatical errors. Beyond the public mockery over the typos, the project has triggered a fierce privacy backlash, with opposition politicians demanding formal reports on data protection. Experts warn that the system lacks any legal framework and represents the ultimate dream of an authoritarian technocrat transforming the country into a giant laboratory where algorithms classify citizens by risk and behavior. Also on the topic of data systems and technology, local authorities have turned to international data sharing to block child support evaders from entering any stadiums during the upcoming FIFA World Cup. Jorge Macri, the chief of government of Buenos Aires City, announced that the local registry of deadbeat parents has been sent directly to the United States. Authorities plan to use international admission laws to ensure that anyone who refuses to feed their kids faces immediate consequences and gets barred from soccer's biggest stage. On that note about soccer, fans are holding their breath over an injury scare involving Lionel Messi, who sparked nationwide panic after limping off the field with a left hamstring issue during his final match for Inter Miami. Lionel Scaloni, the national team coach, quickly tried to calm fears, stating that initial evaluations point toward muscle fatigue rather than a severe tear. The coach is facing a big fitness puzzle, with several key world champions currently sidelined, forcing him to call up more than 30 players for upcoming friendlies in Texas and Alabama. The massive devotion to the national captain is driving 3 friends from the eastern Entre Rios province to pull off an almost impossible physical feat, rolling into Dallas, Texas on bicycles after traveling for 9 continuous months across 17 countries. Miguel Cilio, Shamadou Martinez, and Vicente Conculini have pedaled over 10,000 miles, carrying 80 pounds of gear through freezing Andean peaks and brutal tropical heat just to follow the national team. They left behind stable careers to pursue this dream, and despite riding through guerrilla bomb zones in Colombia and prison riots in Ecuador, they are determined to reach the training camp in Kansas City. To learn more about their story, check out the link in the show notes. Turning to the arts, the Argentine filmmaker has reached the absolute peak of international cinema as director Federico Luis won the prestigious short film Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival for his work titled Para los Contrincantes, or For the Opponents. The film follows a young boy chasing his boxing dreams in Mexico while learning a harsh lesson about growing up and learning how to lose. The jury granted the top award unanimously. To wrap up, a recommended read. Writing for the Buenos Aires Herald in English, international trade analyst Juan Marcos Pollio explores the unprecedented external opening of Mercosur. Pollio details how the trading bloc, historically famous for its rigid protectionism, is experiencing a dramatic shift, concluding historic free trade agreements with the European Union and the European Free Trade Association. To read the full piece, check out the link in the show notes. And that's it for this week. Thank you for joining us. Anything to ask or tell us? info@rorschach.com. Nos vemos la próxima semana.